Like, people are playing down Antony's performance yesterday. Like, there's nothing interesting to gain from it, or there's nothing interesting what he did, the good things he did. They're not interested in it because they've already made their decision on Antony. But the things he did well are the things that Manchester United desperately need. It's quite interesting, isn't it, when somebody goes out of a team for a while, and then they come back in, and you probably see the things that they do well. He does things poorly as well, but there's two massive things that he solved. He solved two big problems for Manchester United yesterday, and then I find them very interesting. Number one is something that people actually get annoyed with him about. So when he holds possession and he holds play up, right? So what he did, he actually held play. So the ball would go out to Antony, and he'd hold it and touch, cut inside and frustrate the fans, right? They all hate it. But what that actually did was solve a problem that we've had, what Jeremy Carragher's talked about, which is Man United not being compact enough. This huge chasm between the back four and Casemiro, and then the attacking unit. So what Antony actually did when he received the ball was hold play. So then the defensive unit could actually catch up. So then we could be more compact. Then we could actually recycle possession a little bit more effectively with more men further up in Nottingham Forest half. And everyone could push up. So the thing that everyone gets really annoyed about with Antony is something that actually helped us solve a big problem that we have. So these are the things with football where the two things can be right, two things can, all that bollocks. Two things can be right. Is that the right thing? Two things can be wrong. I don't know. But anyway, two things at the same time can be right, the truth. So Antony can frustrate when he's constantly coming inside. And he can frustrate when he's holding possession and not trying to kind of like go straight and attack the fullback. But in reality, it actually helped us solve a problem that we do have at the moment. So not saying that it's incredible when a winger only ever holds play up. But when done correctly with the right teammates around, it can be effective. And for us, it was effective because we actually could compress our team together a little bit. Hence why you saw Amrabat being able to get involved more, because the possession was being held up more. And I think that's a very interesting kind of like thing to take away from it. Not saying that Antony is that guy, but you see that the impact that somebody can have by just holding possession and then looking for a pass, a correct pass inside, or laying it back. But that problem was solved. And the second big thing, that the one that's a bit more kind of like unique that we haven't seen, because we've seen Antony hold up possession since he's got to Manchester United, but I just think maybe against Nottingham Forest, because he hasn't been in the team for a while, we saw the kind of importance of it a little bit more. But the second second big thing that he solved was he was coming inside into central areas and looking for the ball centrally and receiving the ball centrally and receiving it with composure and courage, because the one thing Antony is in tight areas, he can control the ball nicely and he can turn and be a little bit agile and he can pop the ball off. If somebody's there, Antony will find the option. He's not a bad footballer. He just really isn't. He just can't play as a winger, as in an out-and-out winger in the Premier League against really athletic fullbacks. Like that's literally the thing he can't do. But pretty much everything else, he's pretty good at it. So he was coming inside and acting as like an auxiliary 10, right? Because why could he do that, right? Oh, isn't it really crowded in there? No, it's actually not crowded at all. For Manchester United, that 10 space is barren. Because McTominay, and especially Bruno Fernandes, they just get into the box or on the final line with Højlund, right? So then it leaves space in that central area that normally maybe the fullback that's inverting kind of occupiers, but Antony was picking up some really nice areas inside, and he was getting found, and that's where a lot of our joy came from. So it just shows if you've got somebody in those central areas in between the lines, traditional stuff that people have been doing for years, right? Just the traditional 10 spaces where the 10 has been picking up space for donkey's years, my whole life, right? And past it. Because we had somebody in there, because Antony was acting as that kind of auxiliary 10, it gave us some stability and some what's the bloody word? I swear I wrote down here before. It gave us some kind of presence, yeah. It gave us like presence in those central areas. And it wasn't just Antony that was giving us that presence in the central area, it was Amrabat as well. But for me, what I took away from it was the correct patterns and the decent patterns that did happen, because you've got to distill it down to actual things that were going on in the game. You can't just have these like generalized emotive feelings of kind of like what you thought. Like there has to be more kind of like nuance and detail, and I think the kind of best play and the best progression and kind of like the best of what Man United had to offer, if I had to put it into kind of like one build-up, like a specific build-up, it would be that the ball did go out to Antony and he did hold play, or the ball did go into Antony centrally when he's picking up nice spaces, and Amrabat was kind of, in the second half obviously, was also pushed up, and I feel like because we were kind of being a slightly more considered in the second half, and most things were going through on that right hand side, Antony would come inside. Dallo then had space to go on the outside and not constantly to invert, or if he did invert, like we saw when he kind of like skinned that player, he would be going from in to out. With Antony acting as an auxiliary 10, the ball could go in centrally and out again. It could go out and then in again, right? Too many times Manchester United don't have options centrally when it's Bruno Fernandes basically having all the responsibility for that area of the pitch. So with a willing participant in that traditional number 10 area, Antony kind of showed that if we did have somebody who is a out and out number 10 but does have similar attributes to Antony in some aspects, right? Like Antony does have some attributes that you would want in your number 10. Like he just has, like, don't care what you think about him. So what it showed, Antony coming inside and receiving the ball centrally at times and doing good things with it. It just shows that once you've got possession, you've got somebody that's comfortable in possession, and that person has the ball in between the lines. Like that's where all the magic happens. It really does. And too many times we see Man United crabbing their way up the pitch, and that's kind of been the reality of Manchester United and Ten Hag's reign, because we don't have somebody that wants the ball in centrally. The ball has to get punched in to come back out. It just has to create any type of disruption in an organised defence. That's just football remains simple. All these nerds and dorks can give you all the numbers and stats and tables and everything, but the same old patterns run true, and you can have all your specific unique styles of play and patterns to a certain extent, of course, and I appreciate that fully, but the foundations of football and the patterns that players revert to once the chaos of the game ensues, right, they remain the same. Antony played well, and not saying that he's going to be kind of rejuvenated and be like an integral figure in Manchester United's like first team plans in the future. But I think that Antony, realistically, if you look at it objectively, shouldn't necessarily be sold, because it's going to be for a massive, massive loss, right? Like his reputation now is on the floor just because of all this propaganda that he has got. mainly because of just like his persona on the pitch. He does look like a little angry, kind of like snotty guy at times. But Man United should keep Antony, because I think in an ideal world we start playing the type of football. I'm not saying get De Zerbi, but that type of football that De Zerbi likes playing. If you've got a coach that wants to play like that, and that's the style that Radcliffe and Ineos want to go with, like a more on the floor, a more compact pass and move style game, still with penetration. But if you do want to play like that, then I think Antony will look better in that system, and then you will just either raise his value or then have a valuable player for the squad. It's one or the other, right? So it's a win-win. So yeah, I think Antony shows enough realistically and has enough attributes for me to say, this team is so not suited to your attributes. It's insane, right? The touchline is his enemy. Like, the same with Sancho. The touchline is their enemy. There's no point in them being there. It's stupid. So yeah, in an ideal world, we would play in a more compact shape as a team, and we would have the players starting in the first team that want to play in these smaller spaces together. And we would just be more compact. And there would be more trust between the defensive unit and attacking unit. Everyone thinks you're an absolute nut job if you think that Sancho, even Ahmad and Antony and Greenwood, it's so interesting, isn't it? The Manchester United culture of the fan base and what they think's can work and what can't. I think they think that this is the only way that we can go about things. The only way that Manchester United should play is with this dynamic intensity, and if it's not vertical and it's not quick and it's not attack and it's not straight in the box, and they're not interested. So it's a sad case of reality, really. But yeah, Antony solved both our biggest problems in one game. So let's see if we can maybe replicate that with some other players in the future, and maybe with a different style. But yeah, anyway, I'm out. Peace.